a full day with the twins is.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have met compliance with official notification of tonight's meeting. Roll call, please.
Diana Smith,
Here.
Brooke Taylor,
Here.
Glenn Albrecht is excused, Nick Schumacher.
Here.
I'm here, President Olson.
Here. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for comments by members of the public during the meeting as indicated on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the board on any of the topics included on tonight's agenda may do so by signing up on a public comment sign-up sheet by the entrance prior to the start of the meeting. The board requests refraining from making any comments involving personally identifiable information about students, staff, or administration. Comments should be respectful, focused on the items being considered by the board, and will be restricted to 3 minutes in length. So at this time, Ann, are there any comments from the public? All right, then we shall move into the report from our superintendent.
I have 2 informational items tonight, 2 presentations. The first presentation, we have some folks here, and I'll give them a little bit of context before I introduce them. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we have had conversations at a community level with a variety of community stakeholder groups, including the City of Superior, SAHA, UWS, and a variety of other entities. And I would say those conversations are starting to become more firm, or maybe a clear picture of maybe what a vision would be that this partnership could look like. And so we've asked Chancellor Renee Wachter to come tonight and share a presentation. The information she's going to share tonight is similar to information that she shared with the City of Superior. I believe you also shared some information similar to this at the most recent SAHA board meeting as well. So we have Mark here also from SAHA, just as a partner in this conversation. So he's also here to answer any questions. But Renee, with that, I'll kind of hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your time tonight. And welcome to the start of a brand new academic school year. So if yours was anything like ours, just a little bit crazy, but we're happy to see them back on the campus, and I'm sure for you back in the classroom. So we have titled this Our Superior Plan. And what you see represented on the top of that slide is a list of the partners that we've been engaging with that really, if they would all want to be here tonight, like Mark, they would be, to help show their support for, I think, what is a really exciting vision for the community, for the campus, and I think as a catalyst, really, when we talk about Superior itself. So I'm hoping to give you an overview of that tonight. And you see on there that it's certainly us, but one of our primary partners is the University of Wisconsin system, especially their capital planning group. They have been just so supportive. This has really been groundbreaking for the system. They've never done projects quite like this, and so had to go back and build an infrastructure to make this happen. So they've been very committed, very supportive. So has the city, obviously SAHA, conversations with Amy and with Steve and with Len, the Development Association, Essentia Health, the Douglas County YMCA, and Duluth FC. So I like to put this quote up here because I think it's very meaningful for me. I can't believe that this is already going to be my 13th year here at the university. It goes like that. And, you know, when I was inaugurated, they make you pick a theme for your talk that you give to everybody who's in the audience. And the theme that I chose was Partnerships for Progress, because I really believe that the university needed to be a partner into the community. It needed to be transparent. There are no walls around the university, I like to say, because we want to feel like it's seamless. And so we've been working really, really hard the last decade to try to make that a reality. And I think some of the conversations we've been having and some of the projects we've been working on are really bearing fruit. Now, my partner in crime who's here tonight is Janice Meyer. Janice, say your title because I know I'm going to screw it up.
Senior Government and External Relations Officer.
And yes, it does fit on a card. But she's been also very instrumental in the conversations that we've had and with wrangling everybody and keeping us on track and providing outstanding insight. So I wanted to be sure to recognize her. Okay, so as we've been having conversations, we really were trying to craft a vision together for this that captures different components, I think, that create the win-win, not just for the campus, but for the community itself. And the first is to attract and retain students. Obviously, we think about enrollment and want a thriving, healthy campus, including student athletes of all kinds. At the same time, broadening recreation and athletic space for youth and community members. We know that one of the things that is true about our community is that space is at a premium. And we'll talk a little bit about why specific kinds of spaces are at a premium. But providing opportunities for our youth to be out there and engaged and involved. The second is to create a catalyst for development on Belknap. And while the old football field sits out there, sometimes, until Nick and his team put the banner up, it's just a little bit of an eyesore out there. And so what can we do to re-energize, reinvigorate something on that side of town that will really be attractive? What you're going to see is that there's this kind of neat corridor that's kind of shaping up sort of unintentionally that kind of becomes this recreation and athletic district, which will be anchored, at least on our part of the campus, by the new Superior Choice Credit Union Stadium, which is the track and field and turf stadium, soccer stadium that will go in. But also even broader when we think about the new facilities that the school is invested in. It's really kind of an exciting concept. Also, why we've been having conversations with the community partners is, are there ways to create things within this project that create additional wins? Are there needs out there that somehow could be addressed through this development? And so one of the ones we certainly heard was health and wellness, anything that can go to support health and wellness for all kinds of folks. The other was critical access to childcare. I don't know who you talk to. I think the parents are very relieved that school started again because they talk about summer daycare being such a chore, much less daycare during the year. And so we know that having quality access is important for our employers. We hear it from our adult students that are on campus needing someplace to drop their kids off, even if it's just to go to a class and more. All right, we love Superior, but our weather is not always conducive to being outdoors, especially I think about this June, where I don't think it got above 60 until July 1st. And I remember the June where winter went on and on and on, and that's when the ice caves were open and you could drive across. I don't think we've had it since, but yeah, it makes being outside and doing things outside really tough. So expanding access for year-round participation in attendance and sporting events. And then finally, creating an inspiring campus and, more importantly, community spirit, creating highly memorable experiences in community spaces that are really celebrational and really put our city on the map. So here's a shot of the south side of campus, right across from the high school. And so what you'll see in that yellow box is Westman Arena. You see parking and you see the old track and field. That's the track and field that's going to go away. It has not been ready for competition now for, oh gosh, it was pre-COVID. So that time is slipping by. And yeah, they're out there a little bit and we had some youth camps out there, but it's really, we can't compete. It's not compliant anymore because the weather has been so tough on it. We have Saha here because we've been having this conversation with Saha, and that actually started pre-COVID, very briefly. I had a conversation when Janet Bewley was still in office and Nick Milroy was still in office. I can remember it vividly where we were down in like I don't want to call it the party room, but the room that's there for periods of respite during the games. To see if there was something that we could do that was a partnership. And then it kind of died and we all went our separate ways, and it's resurfaced again, I think, in a really exciting way. I think the time really has never been better. We know that Saha has a facility that's at least 40 years old where even if the investments that they would put in would just simply maintain but not create a space that would be usable, wouldn't be as forward-thinking as it could be in terms of serving youth. And so talking about, we know that that the high school rents from us and from Saha. Now we're starting to have a conversation. Are there avenues, if we were to add additional sheets of ice onto Westman, that would create additional opportunities for youth, for collegiate athletics, for community, not just now, but for generations to come. Additionally, you think about too, having contingent sheets of ice really expand the opportunities for tournaments, to bring tourism in, other youth camps throughout the year. We know that ice is at a premium. And I think the synergies that could be there with us being all co-located is really kind of exciting. I know one of the things that's a big concern of Saha's, and it is of ours as well as we progress with these projects, is trying to create spaces that are very mindful for the cost of access for our families. We don't have a lot of high-income kids. We want to make sure that sports are still accessible because we think these are great opportunities for them, not only for the sport itself, but for leadership development and all those other great things that sports do. So keeping those costs in mind, no matter how this winds up progressing, it's important to all of us. I think of our students, we don't have students with means. This is a lot of first-generation Pell eligible kids. We don't want to be thinking about a lot of student fees for them on our side. Okay, so this is the exciting part. Now, keep in mind that this is just one artist rendering. So you can repeat after me, this is just an artist rendering. But it starts to create this mental picture of how transformative something like that could be on that side of town. Especially when you think about the high school being literally right across the street, creating new entryways, new pathways into this area, and completely changing the look and feel of what happens. I mean, the high school looks amazing. Westman looks like Westman, but there are real opportunities, I think, to create memorable spaces as well as exciting indoor possibilities on that side. You know, and we've talked about, you know, is there the opportunity, if there were 2 sheets of ice, let's say one sheet you kept open during the summer and turfed it, that could be a possibility. There's lots of interesting things that could happen with us being co-located. This is the north side of campus, and that lightest of the gray boxes is the main heart of campus. The big whitish building that you see sort of at the bottom of that box is Swenson Hall. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's the plan for all that side of campus and then to hone in on some specifics. So right across from Swenson Hall, there's a little building. If you've been on campus, you may notice it, you may not have noticed it. It was owned by the Diocese of Superior. It was the old Newman Center, the old Catholic Newman Center. The diocese wanted to let that loose a few years ago. We bought it because it was right next to campus. You don't get those kind of opportunities very often. We really didn't know what to do with it. We're like, could we do a maker space with digital printing? Could we move campus safety over there? And we didn't really settle on anything. And I'm glad we didn't, because the opportunity I think that's there is way more exciting than any of that. So we have on campus the Pruitt Center for Mindfulness and Wellbeing. And I know they've worked a little bit with the school districts, with teachers, trying to build and teach students resiliency skills so that they don't get to that mental health crisis. They work very closely with the Miller Dewan Foundation over the bridge, and Miller Dewan was impressed enough with the work that they said, you know, we'd like to figure out how to partner with you to expand additional services in Superior. So if you've ever had to do healthcare in Duluth, there's always the challenge of healthcare reimbursement, what your insurances they take, don't take. It becomes very challenging for us to go across for those kinds of services. Not only that, there's long waiting times. Kids have to get shipped off to wherever because of the need to have access to providers. So the concept is that we would be partnering with Miller Dewan. And as these conversations went along, there were large focus groups. I think the school district was part of it. They interviewed parents, they interviewed providers, they interviewed NAMI, a lot of the agencies that also serve mental health needs. And the idea was, can we create a holistic mental health center that would sit on that space? They like that space a lot because it's near the bus routes. It's near a major thoroughfare, but set back far enough where it feels a little bit private. If you've ever been in Amber Wing, it is such a beautiful facility. It does not feel like you are going into a clinical setting. And so the vision is there something that we can create that is really forward thinking about how we address mental health needs? And so we would envision that our student health and counseling would be in there, the Pruitt Center would move out of Swenson in there, and that Miller Dewan would be operating facilities in that building as well. And so they are funding the feasibility study. That's in the process. They are at the point now where they are actually looking at what spaces each partner needs and then trying to figure out, are there synergies? And that should be done by the end of October, that particular part of that phase. So the thought that we can expand youth and youth-oriented mental health services in Superior, I think, is really critical. What you see on the yellow side is where the Markovich Wellness Center is, Gates Gym. And the furthest in, you see Superior Choice Credit Union. That's where the new stadium is going. So that's where the new track and field turf will be specifically designed for soccer, but the field will also be striped for lacrosse. So it's meant to be that kind of facility. So it's not going to be on the Belknap side. It's going in closer to the Markovich Wellness Center. They should be doing groundbreaking in the spring, and we're knocking on wood that is ready to go by the time fall rolls around, or at least early enough into the season that the kids can get on there and play. The other part is where the new things go. So the Superior Choice Credit Union was funded by UW System. That's gone through the capital projects process. Hopefully done deal. We're moving on that one. The other part is where it says Superior Athletics Center, turf facility. So the vision is to create, again, when we know that our seasons are so short and that we lack really multi-purpose spaces to be indoors to recreate. That's one of the impetuses for this. We're also constrained in the Markovich Wellness Center and could use additional space as well. And so this one, as we were talking to partners, really seemed like a win-win. Like, we need that ability to get indoors. It's designed right now, the specs are such that you would be able to play an indoor softball game in there. Or you could take the space and divide it up into 4 smaller spaces and have like 4 youth groups running at the same time. It really would be designed to be a multi-purpose space. I think what's exciting about it too is that we've had conversations with the Y and with Essentia as that end of campus develops. And the conversation initially with the Y was, we were looking at what they did in Hermantown. And so if you've been up at the Hermantown Y, they have Essentia Health is in there in that facility, and they do OT, PT services up there and take advantages of the recreation space. We were having that conversation with the Y as Carl and his board are trying to figure out what does their future look like going forward. We know during COVID that their numbers absolutely exploded. And so they are on a shortage of space. One of the things that seemed to be natural that Carl's having conversations with his board about and that they seem excited about is this opportunity we have with childcare. So right now they are space constrained. They're busting at the seams. They got one of their racquetball courts has like kids equipment in there. And the thought was how they could better serve the community if they were to relocate that so that they could have additional space, therefore providing additional opportunities for families to have kids and childcare. So very excited about that and increasing programming. You know, we also specialize in early childhood development. It's a great opportunity for students to get involved as well. some of the programming and assisting Carl. The other part with Essentia, again, sort of spurred off what was happening in Hermantown, is as Essentia is looking at their Superior campus and trying to figure out where that is going, is there the opportunity to do the same kind of thing? Could they offer OT, PT, sports med, kinds of services within a facility down there, either on one side or the other, where that would make sense, where that would again provide additional opportunities for the community and a win for them as well. We even talked about, could they do a minor emergency clinic? Because we know the one in Super One closed during COVID. And if that, a Mariner Mall, I think, is the only place you can go right now. So are there additional opportunities there as well? So you might see that one of the residence halls doesn't exist in that photo. That would be Crown Heart. That would be the oldest residence hall that we have on campus. It was built in 1964. I joke that it is early cinder block vintage. Yeah, students aren't looking for that these days. And so we're trying to figure out, as we look at that facility, we know it will disappear at some point, what makes sense to go there. And so we've been having conversations with the Development Association, with the city. They're doing a housing study. They're doing a hotel motel study. What would make sense on that side of campus? Would it be mixed use housing? Would it be putting a hotel up? I mean, if you think about a hotel would be incredibly attractive, because if we've got visitors to the campus, or you've got conventions that are coming in and using facilities, or you've got tournaments coming into town that are using the high school, or they're using any of the ones that would be on that side, they're right there. And so it's certainly one of the options that we're interested in seeing. I know that Jim Caesar is really excited about this side of Belknap. We've been watching very closely what happened in Eau Claire. Eau Claire has two joint public-private partnerships that they did. One is the Confluence Center, which is right there literally on the river. The other is the Pablo Arts Center that they went into partnership with, and it has attracted an additional $100 million into that community in terms of investment. And so we're thinking, could these developments be a real catalyst and shot in the arm for Superior on this side of town? And what else would that do to bring in to our community? So again, another picture of what this could look like. The other fun thing too is that when the word got out that we were building a new stadium, Duluth FC expressed interest in perhaps making a move. They were looking for a new home. And the thought that they would have turfed field to play on, and then when they saw the vision for this turf facility for practice, got them very excited. And so I know that Alex and John Schuster are very keen on continuing those conversations. It's gotten serious. At first it was kind of like, oh yeah, well, and now it's gotten fairly serious. And so looking at a way to create, again, additional access for our community, for kids getting involved in sports. I know they've been doing a lot with camps and clinics, and this would provide additional opportunities as well. They are popular. They are attracting crowds. They are successful. And so think about that kind of energy and that kind of enthusiasm could happen on our side of the bridge. And so again, just another shot. So where are we in the process? We have been working with our developer, I'll call them at risk, meaning that the contract hasn't been signed yet, but they have been doing work for us gratis because they believe in the project. We have presented this to UW System President Rothman and his team, and they have given us the green light to keep pursuing this. So what that means is that this has got legs now, and that system is willing to back it. They're willing to continue us pursuing it. There's one big other final hurdle, and that is the Board of Regents, and they are like the system president's boss. So we are bringing the regents up on September 13th, like a week away. System President Karen Walsh is excited enough about this. She's like, you know what? I need to bring my buddies up here. So she is flying them from Milwaukee in Madison in her plane. We've got 6 of them going with her. We've got several driving up from the Eau Claire area. We are calling it a Superior Day. And we will be showing them the vision and hope that they say yes when the Board of Regents meeting rolls around at the beginning of October. So it's a preview for them to kind of kick the tires and ask some questions and to really understand how meaningful this project can be, not just for the campus, but for the community as well. So, and I will end with, again, I think I'm so grateful for the partners that have engaged with us so far, including the school district, because I truly believe that we can do way more together than we can do alone. And I can't think of another time in the history of Superior where there's this much energy and the timing seems so great to be able to do some really great things for our kids, for our families, for our community, for Superior. So.
Renee, I know one question the board's gonna have is the potential funding sources for this project. So I know you talk about the Board of Regents, but can you talk a little bit about what that funding could potentially look like?
Each side of the projects are different. So the mental health, that's kind of like its own thing. There's certainly the turf facility is yet another piece, and the hockey arenas are yet another piece that looks entirely different, because at least, let's say for that one of the things that we think has got real promise is a non-state agency grant. And so they happen occasionally. The Milwaukee Bucks got one, the Confluence Center in Eau Claire got one from the state that could potentially put up at least a third of the cost of constructing a facility. Now, the key is, we as a university can't apply for it. It has to be a nonprofit, which Saha is. And so we think we got also people in the right places with the right connections. We've got the right, I think, legislative makeup that I think makes this a real possibility. I also believe that they owe Northern Wisconsin, like DOP was Southern Wisconsin already. And so I think the timing for that is really good, but it would come from multiple sources. Part might be fundraising, could be naming opportunities, could be the non-state agency grant. So each one of these is going to look a little bit different.
Can you mention for everybody that's here, the timeline? So the Board of Regents will be here, and then if this grant starts to move through, or is there specific timelines that we're looking at as this whole project progresses?
Yeah, specifically like for the non-state agency grant, we're already
Yes.
doing our background homework, trying to figure out like, how did they put it together? And, what was the process leading up to it? And assuming that the board approves it, that would be hopefully one of the things that we could get on the Superior Days agenda, so that we are actively out there and lobbying for it. And I got what? Did it give me this year? It's this year. This is, coming April. Yeah. So we would want to make sure that we had an all-out push on behalf of the community to make that happen. And then in the meantime, we would be working with our developers to do a lot more fine point. We've done very gross numbers, but really starting to hone in on what does the operations look like, what is that going to run, et cetera. So doing all of the detailed work.
Other questions?
Questions? Anybody yet?
Each time you shared it, it's exciting.
Yeah.
To see the pictures of what it could look like. So
I am just super excited. Yeah.
So when you look
The
at
fact that the board chair is bringing regents up.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
like,
these types of things have not happened since Mr. Markovich was the regent right out of Superior. So it is long overdue that they come and they recognize our community, and especially the university. When you go to other places, other university schools in the system, River Falls had a major reconstruction project a few years back with Hunt Center. La Crosse is always somehow having their hand in the pocket and getting things done at their school. And it always seems, at least for all of us in Superior here, and when is it our turn?
I think it's our turn.
I think that you provide some of the energy. I know Janice does. Maybe she can strong arm some of the regents, but it's a project too. I think I mentioned this to one of our meetings that it's been talked about for a number of years, but it has never had the impetus that it has right now or the commitment from someone like yourself. So I just think it's a great project. I hope we can somehow be part of it that's beneficial to everybody. Having kids in the hockey program, Westman Arena is 53 years old now. It's still one of the finest arenas that you can go to, but it's aging. But thinking what Mr. Giuliani and them did over at the Heritage Center, certainly could be something that should be explored over here.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
You're probably welcome to stay for the entire.
Gave them the excuse.
Thank you.
All right, our second update comes from our principal. Welcome.
Yeah. Hey everyone, Danielle Parrish, principal at Northern Lights. Day 2 in the books. It was eventful, it was exciting, and the first 2 days have been very, very smooth. So that's been just awesome. So I'm here to just share a little bit about, what direction are we going this year? What are our celebrations? What do we see as some of our challenges moving forward to the 23-24 year? So to highlight some of our celebrations, this year, Northern Lights, our staff retention is the best it's ever been since the building opened, which we know is 21 years ago now, because we celebrated our 20th last year. We have one new staff member that's shared between 3 buildings. Otherwise, 100% staff retention from our people that are in the building 100% of their day. So that's a huge celebration for us. We're really excited about that. Our teachers, they're rested. They're ready to move into the 23-24 year. There was some work that was done over the summer to help us get ready, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Based off of our parent surveys, we made some adjustments to our parking lot. Parking is always an issue, drop off, pick up at almost all of our schools. So we made some big changes. We changed the direction, the flow of traffic. It's something that I worked with Officer Kendall on prior to him leaving. And so far, the first 2 days, we've had staff out there. It has gone much smoother than I expected. So that's been a huge celebration. Another celebration is we're going to continue opportunities for our students through some of our community partnerships. Prior to COVID and prior to me being at Northern Lights, they had a program called Safety Around Water. They partnered with the Y, and kids would go learn about water safety. We have not done that now since I've been here. So this year, we're going to get that going again with our 2nd grade crew. We're going to kind of roll it out just 1 grade at a time rather than all 500 kids. So the staff are excited about that. We're continuing our nutrition education through the UW-Madison Foodwise program. And currently 1st grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade receive lessons from them. So we're continuing with that. And then, of course, the partnership we have with the Rivers to Lakes program. That's another community opportunity that our kids are participating in. And the biggest celebration, and something we worked all year on last year, is we have rebranded Northern Lights. We are the Junior Spartans, and trying to be all inclusive, and the culture team spent almost the entire year coming up with this logo. Staff input, student input, parent input. And this is what we have landed on. So this is our new logo. And the reason behind it is we're all working towards those graduation rates, right? We are all Spartans from 3K all the way up till we graduate. So we want to represent where our kids are going to be going. So we're the junior Spartans. And there's a lot of pride in what's going on with our new logo and in our school building. One of the biggest challenges 2 days in that we know will exist is our attendance. Last year we had 52% of our students had more than 10 absences. And in the state of Wisconsin, that's habitually truant, and that's a problem. You can't see your achievement go up if half of your kids are gone so much out of the year. And so we're really focusing on right out of the gates, how are we going to get the kids to school? What can we do? Sharing the importance with families about how attendance, like the impact it has and how it really does matter. So one of our school goals that I'm going to talk about in a bit is around attendance. It was a focus for us last year. We're going to continue to focus on it. But right now we're really focusing on how can we get our parents to understand how important it is to get to school. And the really fine print that we can't see, it basically says when a kid misses 2 days of school a month, he or she will miss over a year of school by the time they graduate. That's just 2 days a month. That's crazy. And then there's another graphic, when a kid misses 4 days of school a month, then it's equivalent to missing 2 years of school by the time they graduate. So our goal is to really help parents understand, like, it's really important that your kids are coming to school. And this is a little bit different approach than we had last year. We didn't start like this is real information, and we're telling them this at open house. It's been in our parent communication. They've seen this graphic at least 3 times already, and we're only on the 3rd day or 2nd day of school. So that's our biggest challenge. The direction that we're going at Northern Lights this year, we're going to keep our school goals. We've tweaked them a little bit. Our shared leadership team spent some time this fall or this early August, figure out what we wanted to do, but we really want to keep working on reading. And we want to see that our students are making typical or aggressive growth throughout the school year. So last year, the 22-23 school year, in grades K1, 61% of our students showed aggressive growth. We want to see that up to 71. In grades 2 through 5, 59% of our students showed typical or aggressive growth. This year, we want to see 69% of our students hitting that marker. And I just put a little descriptor on the bottom. A typical growth is when they go from the 40th to the 75th percentile. And aggressive growth is if they move to that 75th percentile or above. What we saw, the way our goal was last year, we based it on proficiency and we didn't hit our target. But what our goal didn't capture is how much work and growth our kids made that weren't already here. Our kids that were down here, they made over a year's worth of growth. Some of our kids made 2 years of growth. So we're really focusing on growth this year. And then we're going to continue working on our attendance goal. And we want to decrease the percentage of chronically truant students from 52% down to 40%. And we decided on 40%. That's based off of, we looked at schools that are comparable to Northern Lights. We pulled Great Lakes data. We looked at Cooper. They're more similar in size in the area of the city. And they were sitting around 40%. So we thought that was a reasonable target. We should be able to get our kids there. Our numbers there. So that's how we landed on that.
I will say, just as a former principal, I think attendance data is some of the hardest data to move the needle on.
It is.
Real systems changes that you have to make across multiple stakeholders and systems. So it is a challenge.
Very challenging. And what do we actually have control over?
Right.
So what are some of the things that we're going to do to work towards achieving our goals? For our reading goal, we're specifically focusing on our vocabulary work and our phonics work. And we have, we're going to continue doing what we're doing, but those are 2 strategies or 2 areas that research shows you get a really big bang for your buck if your kids make growth in those areas. So that's why we honed in on those 2. Our shared leadership team, who is in this picture, we have actually broken up into 2 groups. We have an attendance group and a reading group. And as teachers and leaders of our building, they're driving all the work that we're going to be doing. It's not coming from Dave Johnson, the assistant principal, and I. It's coming from our teaching staff, which is really cool because they're owning it. They want to help their colleagues change little things so we can get big results. The attendance, like I said, we're going to continue focusing and we're going to highlight and celebrate the good things. We're making connections with families and we're just going to keep making it fun and do as much as we can that's within our control. So throughout the year, the individuals in this picture are actually rolling out all of our professional development to their colleagues, you know, with the support of our coaches in the district. And some of the other elementary schools have similar goals that they're working on. So we're going to kind of share some strategies and approaches across the district as well. They're really eager and excited to dig into this. We have a staff meeting tomorrow. And I told them, no, we cannot roll out any PD tomorrow. So it's exciting. We have a lot on our list of things we want to accomplish this year. So in a nutshell, super quick, do you guys have any questions?
I didn't see anything about being the best school in the district. That's it up there somewhere?
Twice.
The fine.
Yes, yeah, we are the best school in Superior, and that was unanimously voted on by our students and staff. So, and in this picture too, it's down in the corner, BSIS. Good work, yes.
I liked your dance party that you guys had as well. So
Yes, that was fun. That was fun. We had to do some quick little repairs afterwards, but it was good times.
I have heard quite a bit of thought though of all the schools in the district becoming junior Spartans or Spartans and not individuals, but everybody being.
Working towards the same goal.
Maybe you started something.
Yeah. We like to be trendsetters. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have for my report.
Lights is done. All right. So we shall move to committee agendas. First up, Budget Insurance Committee. Mr. Gallagher?
Me?
Yeah, you know.
Oh, look at that.
And I did. I apologize that I did send something to all of you, but with us being short a member, I thought it would be prudent that we made some changes and stuff. So
All right, good to know. Good to
you're
know.
on. But,
All right, so there is an action item, gifts, grants and bequests. Administration recommends approval to accept gifts, grants and bequests received in August of 2023.
approve.
second,
Seconds, there it is up there on the screen. Any discussion over that?
Mr. Carhonen. Dave used to be what Bobby is, the buildings and grounds director.
Any other discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? It carries. There are no discussion items. There are two informational items. Got the Fund 10 expenditure report up on the screen there. And there will be the revenue report after. You want to speak to that?
So, well, it's nothing to do with the expenditure revenues. One thing that I just want to go over what's happening in the business office. Just last week, we finished up the field work of the audit. When I went in and asked how we did, they of course don't tell you anything. When I asked if you covered the material, they said not yet. So, maybe we'll come up and take a little bit of breath with the field work being done, but there's going to be more. Of course, the audit findings or results, do not come till I think last year they came in February. Hopefully they come.
Historically, they've come in December, but they're short-staffed.
Yeah,
It's
so
schools are.
there's a huge thing with auditors in the state of Wisconsin. They don't want to actually audit schools because it isn't a money maker for them, so it's very limited. And the person that came and did the audit was like 12. So. Sorry.
Awesome.
With that, also one other bit of news, like I said, every one of these meetings, I want to at least give you guys a little bit more information so you can know, be a little more knowledgeable when the community comes up and talks to you. Just last week, I got our estimates for our valuation of property for all the land in our county or in our district, and it jumped 17% or a little over 17%. So the state average is around 13%. What that's gonna mean is that's gonna affect our mill rate and our tax levy. And there's multiple strategies on how people handle their mill rate and their tax levy. You usually wanna keep it flat, but if you keep your mill rate flat, that means your tax levy is gonna go up. If you keep your tax levy up, then your mill rate's gonna go down. And also with this new increase that the state had of the $1,000 that we got, and aid not being increased, that means additional money is gonna be pushed down to the taxpayers. So that's one thing we'll be working through to figure out what our strategic plan is and how we want to go forward with our budget. We need to continue to pay our bills, inflation and everything else that's coming. Expenses are gonna keep going up. That means revenue needs to go up to keep pace with it. So that's where we're gonna be bringing it to you, and at the end of October, when we have the budget meeting to discuss, go over our tax levy and everything, but just know when you go out there, we're gonna have more of a diverse approach in how we look at it. We're not gonna just say our tax levy is gonna stay flat for our bill rate's gonna stay flat. We're gonna find what's gonna be best for us next year and years to follow. The last thing you wanna do is have these peaks and valleys, where all of a sudden the taxpayers don't know what they're gonna be paying, and if you see, a sudden dip, they'll be like, hey, that's nice, and then if you see the sudden spike, the reaction is gonna be much greater. They're gonna be pushing back significantly. Yeah, so it looks like I would say our mill rate is gonna stay flatter, which means it's gonna push up our tax levy. That's what we need to sustain to be successful as a district, so. Also, I'm going to be leaving shortly after this. I need to be in Madison tonight. So if there's anything else tonight.
You're gonna make it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes budget committee, the budget insurance plan.
Thank you. Right away.
Yeah.
Your next meeting.
Pause prepping for that one, right? So perfectly.
Policies and rules.
All right. We have several action items as usual for policies. Administration proposes the approval of changes to the following policies based on your recommendations in order to be in compliance with federal law updates. And so we'll take each one individually. First reading of policy 100 definitions up on the screen, or look at your computers. Any motions on that one?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on that? Any discussion at all?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of policy 100 definitions, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, all right, moving on. First reading of policy 122, board powers.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on. First reading of policy 142.1, electoral process.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on this one?
This is just what we do.
And the addition of the 120.06, which we discussed like the other day,
Any other discussion? Oh, sorry.
making sure that the statutes were reflected. All the statutes were reflected.
Any more discussion on this one? No discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, first reading policy 142.5 vacancies.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
I will just say that there was some discussion about revising this policy. If you wanted to update it, you'll see in this current policy, the board has to act on filling a vacancy. You do have the option, like the situation we're in, to leave it open. Like, because you're nearing the end of someone's term, you could leave it open, but it's not in policy. So if that's something you're interested in, you'd have to add that today or in this policy, or you can leave it as is, but I just wanted to point that out. Does that make sense?
What Amy's saying.
Yeah.
Is filling an empty seat by the statute and by our policy right now. We have to fill the seat the same way we filled and brought Diana on. If we want to leave it open, we need to change policy to reflect that following statute, change policy to add option, I think it's E,
You'd add. Yeah.
to leave it open.
And is that for a certain amount of time? Like, does it, or is that just left up to interpretation because it's coming to the end of a term?
You could say like, in the event the vacancy has only 1 year left of the term.
Okay, sure.
Or you could say, or you could put a lot of different parameters around that.
Okay.
Right now.
Would this policy then reflect what has our current situation, or would this be for future? If we revised this tonight?
This would need a second reading to be fully in effect. If you were to follow it.
Should be next week.
Right.
Monday.
But then because the resignation happened prior, does that matter?
In my opinion, but Kyle's got better opinion. In my opinion. Kyle. Well, he's the attorney. In my opinion, if we change the policy, it would be set because we haven't moved on filling a seat yet. But also, in my opinion, if we already know we have an empty seat to fill, if we go and change policy right now to fit what our desire is for that spot, I think it's kind of in a shady area, in my opinion. Policy is what policy is now. And it is what it was. Sorry, Dan, I'm not facing you. It is what it is when we had an opening, and it is what it is now. I think changing it right now just
To meet our needs.
meet our needs for the moment, I think would be a gray area, in my opinion. I think it's legal. I think it's okay, but I think as a board, we should discuss whether that's something we should actually do for optics and or not. I think we could probably put this one off and change it, or actually we wouldn't have to put it off, I don't think, well, maybe we would, but fill our seat and then worry about changing the language on this policy for future references.
You could table this policy until you get through that process and bring this back up.
Correct. We could table this one until the November
Sure.
meeting, I would suggest, just because something else later on.
But isn't that just one of the options? We would still have to choose the option. So again, even if we implemented it right now, that doesn't mean we're picking option E to utilize in this
If we
situation.
implement it now, then it's an option for us to take. And
Right.
It's something that we change after we already have an open seat. So I think the optics would still be bad on that. I don't think it's a good move.
So is there kind of a norm behind this? Because I know like my district for city council, the seat was vacant and they chose not to fill it before the new election. Is there a norm that boards follow or anything regarding that?
No, but some boards do have an option in here that they can leave it vacant, and you can put parameters in, like if it's the last year of a term,
Sure.
it would remain vacant, or you could put some.
Or
Yeah.
The thing is,
That's usually the only commonality that you see legally is that it, you know, the greater likelihood that that option is used is when it's a shorter term.
Right.
Yeah, but it is
Had
discretionary to the
policy long ago, but we didn't. We would have now. Not that we could have never had it, it's the board never put it in there. So,
This is following kind of the lengthy discussion we had last week
We
about
did.
making sure that, and it could, because you pointed out some of the other statutes and then the numbers and the letters that really weren't referenced and
just to break that, if you scroll down, whoever's in control, all the new green stuff there is word for word on state statutes. So one tells you to go look at this spot, the other one tells you to go look at this spot, which is all up there. And the final one says, well, go back and look at your policy. So that's, you can go in a circle, we're back at policy that says, our policy right now says we have to fill a spot.
The statutory cat chasing its tail.
I agree. I think at this point, we follow policy that's in place.
And table this
So
till November.
I would say we table it until after we decide on how we're gonna fill the open seat.
All right.
So,
You have to table it, can't we? You still just
well,
to bed right now, change it, but we would, as a board, still make the decision or whatever.
If the board is interested in adding an E, what you're saying is we should table it.
I mean,
Kind of what you're saying, though. We
technically-
could adopt it tonight. and-
Up and now still go forward.
Yeah, because this is the process they were to use.
Oh,
You
we're
can
gonna do the
adopt
right
that.
thing.
You could adopt that without adding an E
Correct.
and then reopen it again in November. That's.
Either one of those two, you can reopen any policy anytime you want.
Regardless, when you have a policy, we'll follow to fill the vacancies similar to last time. So
Correct.
either way is fine.
I think adding the E right now isn't a big deal and then just following what we were.
Wouldn't do that.
Good vote.
So I would,
And you don't have to bring it up again in November.
Diana makes a good point. I'd say make a motion to accept this as it is right now without adding anything more to it. Moving it forward, and should the time come we fill a seat and we want to revisit this policy and add letter E, whatever that might be, we do it at that time.
Are you gonna bring this up in November then? Get it on the agenda with Steve?
Yes, we will.
Coming on the
We
agenda.
can make the request right now and add it.
Let's add it to November then, so we don't forget.
so what we have on the table, we have a motion and a second to accept the vacancy policy
Yeah.
as is, as we have. And the most important part is the addition of the green highlighted areas.
Yes. So is there any other discussion on that? Any others? No? Okay. All those in favor with the way it is now on the board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on. First reading of policy 144.5, board member behavior and code of conduct.
Move to approve.
Motion at second. Any discussion on it?
Pretty consistent what we talked about at past retreats.
Any other discussion? Anybody need more time to read it? No? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. First reading policy 152, officers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion at second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on. First reading policy 165.1, regular meetings.
Move to approve.
Motion at second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, first reading new policy 142, not 1421, criminal history record check and employee self-reporting requirements. It is a new policy.
Motion to approve.
A second, any discussion on it?
Makes sense.
Any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on, first reading new policy 1460, physical examination.
Move to approve. Oh, second.
Question second, any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on. We have the first reading of policy 8450, control of casual contact communicable diseases. And we do have guest speaker if they need to be asked any questions. Guest
Brenda,
speaker.
if you have any questions about this policy or the next policy, I've asked her for some feedback as we brought these to you.
Any motions?
Yeah, move. Oh, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Anything you want to add, Bryn? Pretty cut and dry.
No.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? I hear no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, first reading of policy 8451. I'm gonna ask our guest here to give us the official name for head lice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
All right,
We had nurses here.
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Nobody wants it.
Motion on,
Move to approve.
Second.
motion on second, any discussion on that?
This was the second longest discussion that we had that day.
It was, yeah.
And I would say this is pretty consistent with what we already are doing.
Yes.
It is. This is what the process that we follow.
So after our discussion, well, after reading this,
Go ahead.
Amy's bracing already.
No, I'm not.
Should a kid have lice? And we do have last sentence, there are no live lice criteria. And should we find that student has lice? I understand that parents or guardians or whoever might be able to readily pick up their kid. But it also says student with live lice or untreated nits is not able to be picked up. They return to the classroom for the remainder of the school day. Then they don't come back the next day, or, I mean, is there an alternative to putting lice back with every other kid and teacher in the school?
Bryn, do you want to talk a little bit about that? It's like,
So, and
Not trying to isolate kids or nothing, but
Either way.
So all guidance, and we follow our guidance from the Wisconsin Department of Health, which also follows CDC, American Academy of Pediatrics. All guidance states that we do not exclude them that day. If parents want to pick them up, they absolutely can. We always call a parent and say, hey, we have found live lice. We do need them to be treated this evening, when they go home tonight. So they may stay in school that day that we discover it. And then the process is the next morning when the student comes back, we always talk through it with the parents. Like, this is how you need to treat it. These are the steps you need to take. We work with families to send lice shampoo home if needed, if there's, barriers to getting it.
And then the next morning, when the student returns, they check in with the school nurse and the school nurse checks to make sure that there is no live lice present. If there are live lice present and they weren't treated, they do go back home. They don't get to go back into the classroom that next day. So they're not excluded the first day, but they may be excluded the second day if live lice are still present. And as far as like putting them back in the classroom, you know, that day that it's discovered, that just is the guidance that is given to us from every entity as far as like health stuff that we follow. So we try to get this long hair, we try to pull it back. We give the teacher, you know, a heads up so they're aware that we did find the live lice.
If the student doesn't want to go back to class that day, are they allowed to stay out of class? I mean, I know sometimes it can be hard for them finding that out.
In that situation, we would then say to the parent, like, they don't want to go back to class, we need you to come pick them up, because then the question would become, who's going to watch that child for the rest of the day?
So your nurses do a really good job of supporting students who may have had repeat situations. And so I know we do a great job in supporting families and students situations.
We try to remove every barrier we can. I mean, we have, you know, some families that have chronic issues with it, and we get the county involved to see what kind of supports they can put in place for them, how they can help them, you know, maybe clean up the home if that's part of it, to treat, you know, the home and stuff. So our nurses have spent hours picking live lice, you know, from kids' head so that they can be back in school. So we try to do everything we can so we have them in school.
Do they recheck them like for that following week? If they're having it
next day, and then we don't do like periodically, no.
Yeah.
Unless there seems to be an issue.
Yeah, as I say,
Sometimes
sorry.
they're really good about saying, hey,
well, and if it continues to happen, I'm sure there would be different plans in place. Yeah.
and you can tell when it has been treated. So like the nurse is able to tell if it's been treated, just because of how the treatment like affects the nits and, you know, the different parts of growth for the lice. So the nurses can tell. And if they haven't been treated, they'll then follow up again.
All right.
They can't jump. Like don't jump.
They don't jump.
Oh.
Yes, and they, you know, they're a nuisance, yes, but they're not like a disease causing.
The shoving doesn't go with it though either. So that's the hard part. Like they come back and there's no live lice. They won't know if they actually got rid of it until 7 days after.
Yep.
Everybody could just get a haircut like me. You'd be fine.
Bobby did.
Anybody getting itchy?
That was intense.
I got lice in our house. It was happen to anybody.
It can happen to anybody.
Any other discussion on head lice? Body lice is next month.
No.
Kidding. Any other discussion?
The discussion.
All right, no other discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, there's moving on. Last one, determine next steps regarding the vacancy of the board using policy 142.5 vacancies.
So to open discussion, we would need
A motion?
a motion and a second. I'll move to open the discussion.
Second.
Make a motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Let's discuss this.
All right, so we know we have a vacancy and as just discussed a little while ago, there could have been an option not to fill it, but there isn't. We need to fill this position. So what does our calendar possibly look like? So, Ann, can you go back and pull up a calendar? It was back on the main.
Yeah.
Like in your email.
Or just go to the.
Here, I'll tell you.
At the bottom and click on the clock.
All right, so,
Like, we have
how do you say this? say this to the public and stuff. I'm going to be gone. So the 11th is Monday.
And then you got the 18th and the 25th, which are the next 10 days
Right.
of September.
So I'm out of town. I'm out of town the 12th through the,
There you go.
at least the 22nd. Oh, I've got to be back on the 22nd.
Okay.
So my,
It's gone for the 11th and the 18th at this point.
I'll be here for the 11th.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be for that meeting, but I'll be gone for the 18th
Both.
and I'll be back for the 25th. So my suggestion is, first of all, we need to review what we did last time. I want to take a look at those questions again. That we would make an announcement via media.
Is it pros?
Maria.
So
Pardon? He's a
you're
pro.
pros at this.
Wish we were.
Yeah, and Maria helping us out, we would get you the exact date, you know, with that. We would go to the public and say, we do have the vacancy. If you're interested, submit a letter of interest. And then we would have perhaps 3 questions again that they would need to address in their letter. From there, you know, picking a date. I suppose if we got, David, do you think we could get something out by Thursday?
Yeah.
I can work with you on that Thursday then. Yeah, been looking at it. And then
That will have the criteria on it, you're
Yeah.
saying?
that'll be the information that if you're interested, that you need to write a letter of interest to the president. That's what it says we must do. And then I'll give a closing date on it. And they'll be sending it to the board office to Ann. Ann will put packets together like we had last time. So really, I'd like to close it no later than Monday, the 18th. That gives you some time to look at things. I know that I'll probably have computer access sometime the night of the 21st. So I can start looking at it. So our decision would be is when would you like to have the interviews conducted then? The 25th? Or would you rather wait until the COW meeting on the 2nd?
What time would we do it? The 25th evening, just
It'll
like
be, right.
5 o'clock-ish?
It'd have to be a regular meeting. Has to be open to the public, so it'd be a 5 o'clock meeting.
We do have more flexibility now with board member schedules if we wanted to go earlier, but.
I'm free the 25th. I don't.
Personal preferences to get it all done in one day. I'd rather
Oh,
move to the 2nd, but I could certainly do the 25th.
But if I do the 25th, I'm gonna be a Dave situation. I'm going to Stevens Point that night. So,
that would be a long one then.
I'd say the 2nd.
Okay, so the 25th you're saying is hard for you?
It would be,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I
I
could
don't
do
have a
it, but it'd be difficult.
I don't have a lot on the agenda at this point for October, so I feel like it could be a light agenda. Okay. And today. Things change.
And October is going to be a busy month for us.
Yeah.
We'll have the 2nd, we'll have the 9th, we'll have the 30th with the budget. Followed up a week later with our regular meeting in November, and then we've got the November 13th. So we do have a pretty busy schedule on our plates.
And usually in October, we do some first visits to schools. I know.
Yeah, she's gonna be getting us. I haven't talked to you about it yet, but I need to do that.
But if
I talked.
if we did get it done on the 25th, they'd be able to come to the first meeting on the 2nd as well. It'd be probably a pro.
Yeah.
I mean, I could certainly make it work. It's Ed, that's a problem.
Thanks, Nick.
Drink one of your alarms, you'll be fine.
I mean, we could do an earlier meeting too. What time do you need to be there? At 4?
Let's just, I don't care. I'll pull Dave, whatever. So 4 o'clock. We do 4. Sooner the better.
Yes.
We are looking at the 25th.
I think I can.
No, I can do it. I would have preferred to have it all in one day, but if it means whoever it is getting in here for another,
I need
an
2.
additional meeting, that's great, I think.
So are we doing the 25th?
Starting at 4?
Yes.
I'm good with it.
Okay. 4 o'clock.
Okay. A shave by then.
All right, September 25th.
All right.
So you're gonna need to make a motion to do what you just said, because you just made a motion for the discussion, but you should probably, what you think, Kyle?
Is
Exactly.
the cleanest way.
Whole thing?
Well, I think you should make a motion to say that you want to
Said,
conduct these interviews as soon as possible on the 25th.
How are we gonna do it if there's work? I mean, because 4:00 might be a conflict for some people, some candidates. Is,
We started at 4 last time.
did we?
I think so.
Okay.
We did.
How bad do they want it, Brooke?
Because it's awesome.
So I make a motion that we conduct interviews for the vacant school board position on Monday, 25th of September, starting at 4 PM in the afternoon.
And you're actually revising your original.
I'm amending my original motion. Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to have interviews for vacancy September 25th at 4 PM. Any other discussion on that? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sort of, but okay. Motion carries.
Part of it. Illegal.
That's not an option.
All right, there's no discussion items, no informational items, and that's all the matters I have for this committee.
Thank you. Next up is the Operations Committee. Mr. Albrecht's not here. I'll take that. No action items, no discussion items. There are two informational items. First of all, facility use fee schedule effective 1/1 of 24. And Ella Olson, our Director of Activities, is here in case you have any questions.
Two things. Do you want to provide a little bit of background as to why we're bringing this forward? And secondly, I don't know if you had time since I talked to you last week. Were you able to find any comparables to other places?
Yeah,
Okay.
so this kind of came up, well, with conversations with UWS, improving their facilities, right? You get a lot of income from UWS soccer right now. The hope being that their field is done next fall means we lose out on a decent amount of revenue. This isn't gonna make a huge difference. That's gonna come back, but our turf is getting old. We know we have to replace it. We know that it gets used a lot by clubs that don't pay anything, which I think is really great. But Rhea and I kind of went through and looked at comparing our facilities to others, not only in the Twin Ports area, we're looking at 709, Hermantown, Proctor, but also those in comparable districts in our state too. So this model is pretty much directly after Verona High School. Very similar size to us, Division I athletics and kind of our facilities. Again, there's multifaceted why we looked at this, but with all the money we put into the PAC, that was kind of the leading factor of we don't charge enough for the beautiful work we put in updating that last year. So that kind of is what started it. And then looking at different groups. Right now,
Can you click on the first sheet there, Ann, just so they can see what it currently looks like?
this is what our current structure is for fees. So it's a lot of Rhea kind of chasing down who's using it, what are the groups, what are they made up of? Right now, like for those that don't pay in our community, it's 50 to 3/4% can be non-Superior residents. So you think about those that are not paying taxes in our community are getting to use if you're within a bigger group, our facilities for free. And so the biggest change, I think, in the proposed effective January 1st would be those groups that are in that free category, group 2 kind of on the sheet is 90% or more are Superior School District students.
And can you click on the indoor outdoor tab? Yep. Show you, then go down. There.
The student interest groups is kind of what they call it, but I think the big number there is like 90% or more of the participants must be current residents of Superior students. So we're looking at, what kind of interest groups, we didn't list all of them, but a good chunk of them are PTOs, our SBA, so our youth basketball is, I'm pretty sure 100%. Our Superior Youth Organization for baseball, our football league, those resident nonprofit club sports is kind of what that falls under. We don't have a middle school program yet. And right now it's a lot of people doing great things and volunteering and spending a lot of their own time. And so trying to get those situations where we're not paying for that. That group 3, I think, is where it's going to see the biggest impact. And honestly, Bria and I were sitting trying to figure out who this is. The one that came to mind is Rampage Softball, a group softball that when we ask them, it's like 7 of our 13 are from Superior. And so they right now are not getting charged to use our turf. That's one where it's a sport where people pay to play. I think there's other soccer organizations that might have students from outside our districts, as well as maybe some baseball, some volleyball. So that's going to be, as we get into this system, trying to figure out which groups are 50 to 90% and which groups are 90% our students that are using our facilities. Again, the fees are not a huge gap and a huge change. I think our turf, I don't think we raised our turf per hour because it's probably at the high end in the area, but we still get a lot of rentals for that. I think we did go up for the group 6, which is very, very rare that we get those. Not Superior residents and they're for-profit organizations. Doesn't happen a ton. I can think of maybe a semi-pro football team that might have been in here that doesn't get to come anymore.
Right.
That would be like that group 6. Yeah, so I think trying to encompass and maybe getting a little bit, again, some of these groups are, we have sunflower seeds in the turf. We have, garbage cans tipped over and stuff. That takes maybe not fiscally, like I'm writing a check, but it takes our maintenance guy 2 hours to get this place cleaned up. And it's 2 hours that he could be maintaining our turf to try to get it to last that full 15 years, which will have an impact on. So it is a lot to look through, but once you get through it, the next step is if we get moving forward on this, Bria will have to update our entire facility system, which is going to be a lot of work on the front end, but in the back end, I think is going to help her.
No comparables then.
Yeah, so
Yes.
can you just go down a little bit on this?
Sure.
I looked up Wade Stadium, so this one I was asked to check out, in terms of what does it cost. We charge by hour for our facility, just for reference, for our baseball is $125 an hour. For a doubleheader game, now Wade Stadium is turf. So it's the only baseball turf stadium, I think, in a long ways. Until Hermantown, I think, is doing one, but 360
Proctor has
theirs too. Theirs is unique because it's shared for like 7 different sports at a time. But $360 for a doubleheader game, which could be anywhere between 5 or 6 hours. So it is cheaper there, but then there's a $90 usage fee that kind of balances it back up. In terms of looking at, I shouldn't say this, public school stadium, because I don't remember what it's called now, and Ordine and like Hermantown Centricity Field, as far as our soccer, football, lacrosse field, we're pretty right on par with that. Same thing with our Performing Arts Center, looking at those two. I'd say when we have the snow off of our baseball and softball fields and our Superior District stuff, and then UWS isn't using it, we have that rented out. Junior colleges, high schools from across the bridge come over to use those in the springtime. So there are still very few baseball and softball diamonds at our turf, so I'm not worried about not getting income from them. And UWF will still be using them primarily as well.
Do our teams and students take precedence over all of this? Okay.
Yeah, so there's kind of and maybe that's something I can add to, it's this hierarchies, our Superior activities in school district. And then we have an agreement because of Westman, obviously the chancellor here, UWS gets kind of that second tier of priority. again, I haven't seen the official thing, but that's what I've been told by, hey, you guys have second priority on Westman, we can get second priority on the turf complex is kind of the handshake agreement, maybe, unless there's.
I'm wondering if we shouldn't spell that out a little bit.
I would agree with that.
As this other project, if it ever moved forward, but,
That would probably be a separate agreement, I think.
right.
Yep.
Right.
But it doesn't come into effect at time. It's a junior college says, can we play here? And I say, well, UWS, and they say, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Sure. I do think that what you've put together is much more descriptive and is better than what we've been using. So thanks for the work and a lot of research to figure out what makes sense.
And I'll be open with you. I was the one that questioned about the rates that we were charging and stuff on on our own baseball field and stuff, because of this past spring, working a game over in Duluth, there were teams from Hurley and Ironwood that came over, and their concern was trying to save a buck, obviously, but they were only allowed to rent it for 5 hours. And by doing that over in Duluth, they were able to save almost $200 and stuff. And I asked them, and I know both coaches very well, and I said, why didn't you just stop in Superior? We weren't playing. And they mentioned that, so.
For sure. And I think that has been the only time people have said, oh, that's too much. It's been our softball and baseball. But again, and I guess in this, my sense of JVC would maybe be proud of me, like we can still build that,
It'll be interesting to watch too. Hermantown will be getting a turf baseball diamond for sure. Still arguing about whether softball will get it or not. My memory serves me right. Did Hermantown say anything with their rental for their football? Was that all or?
It was almost identical to ours because I think they asked Ray/me for that. And that's kind of how we all function in this area. Like, Ella, what do you charge? And then I say, it's
another comparable.
Not doing a bidding war
Right.
between our public schools necessarily. I mean, the Wade is another entity too, but again, they have 10 different home teams in the springtime for them between Classica and Marshall and all the fun stuff. So, I mean, it's just a matter of if it's not real grass up here, it's usually being played on because,
Okay, I'll have the turf for football, soccer.
Thank you.
Thanks. And then next, Pat Gillen, our Director of Transportation, is here to give us an update.
Well, yeah, hello. If I haven't met Mike Spacula, I took over for David C. as he moved on to the business office. And while it seems like a long time ago, we did have a very successful summer program. No issues with getting all the kiddos to and from school. We actually consolidated from 6 routes from the year before down to 5. And we also added the after-school care at Great Lakes for supporting the YMCA. Then in addition, we did have 1 route dedicated to Parks and Recs program. And then this year, we also incorporated park stops from the Parks and Rec program into our summer school routes. So students could actually attend summer school and then attend the Parks and Rec in the afternoon for continuous care all day. And about a month ago, we received our 7 brand new buses. So thank you for that. 2 of them are on the road as of today. We're working on getting the last 5. Right now, we need to add EPS units. And since we do have buses right now that are keeping us afloat, I want to make sure the new buses are all ready before we put them on. And then we've had 2 successful days of school. Everyone has made it home. There's been a couple students that got off at the wrong stop. It took a little bit of searching to find them, but everyone was safe and sound within, I think, 10 minutes after notification. So we've been doing very well. I think it's better than last year than when Dave C had it. So.
I wish he was here.
He's not here to defend himself.
But it's been really fun. It's also been really a challenge, but everything's going great.
Last year, there's talk on the busing at the high school and going at the middle school as far as parents taking up busing spots.
And
Like that this year.
And we haven't heard of anything yet this year. I do know the high school, I think they've sent me a picture. He was over there while I was at middle school. And they had sawhorses blocking off the route, so that kind of sealed it for them. So, yeah, very well this year.
I think the issue is as we get past the first days of school, people tend to follow the rules in the beginning, and then as people aren't out there as much, they tend to come back into those busing areas. So we got to keep staffing in front of those buildings and helping with that, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I seen Brooke doing that.
Sure.
Is the high school, are the families notified of kind of where the drop off spots are, everything like that?
Give it a nice little map.
I'm not in high school. I don't have high school kids.
Anything else, Matt? Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to have before the operations committee? Anybody? Hearing none? Move on.
Yeah.
Next up, teaching and learning. Mr. Schumacher.
All right, no action, no discussion items, information items. Crystal, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, back to school update. Woohoo.
Feel weird about me coming and standing. I see people. I will. Hi, everybody. At the beginning of August at the meeting, I kind of shared briefly kind of what all of our plans were for the month of August to get the school year up and running. I thought I'd give you just a brief update about how everything went. During the month of August, and Danielle kind of gave some really awesome examples of the work that was done and the picture of her team in her presentation. All of our buildings had their shared leadership teams come together at Cooper. We spent 2.5 days together. Over 100 teacher leaders were there for that entire time. We also had several family engagement coordinators from the different buildings join us for the work. And of course, all of our principals and instructional coaches and several directors, we were there. Kate Tesh led us through the process of all of the buildings, looking at their data and determining if they were going to keep their same goals from last year or if they needed to adjust their goals or maybe create a new one or two. So for example, Danielle's focusing on reading and attendance at Northern Lights. And as she kind of alluded to, several themes became present when we saw several elementary schools, attendance being an example, wanting to focus on the same thing. So that's going to help us to be able to support them throughout the school year with resources, et cetera. So the teams came together, worked on their goals. Another really important thing that those teams did during those 2.5 days was do a lot of preparation to get ready to lead their colleagues on August 28th, 29th, and 30th, when we gathered for staff development last week. They prepared to lead their colleagues during like grade level and department planning time, but they also really helped the principals plan how those building times were going to be used. So the whole school, the whole staff could hear about what the school goals were and what everyone's role was going to play in that important work. So it was really successful. I will tell you, as you can imagine, that work is really hard to do. The weather was nice and we look out the big, beautiful windows at Cooper and see the sun and the nice weather. So it's hard to sit for that long and do all of that work, but our teacher leaders, over 100 of them came together and it was amazing. So
Can I interject?
Yes, please.
I just also want to say that those days, I mean, we prep for those days all summer, so that's the work we're doing, but our teachers are phenomenal leaders in our district, and we would be, nowhere without our principals. The work that they put in prior to those days so that they could have successful time with their teacher leaders. I'm so proud of the work that is done, and I mean, every year I'm learning. Crystal, Carrie, we continue to learn to try to make it the best we can for everyone, but I think this was year 5 of the process, and it is, I have never seen across the state teachers, teacher leaders, principals coming together in this fashion with a really specific process to analyze data and make plans, and it's pretty cool to watch. So really,
I want to add on to that too. The energy was incredibly positive, and I felt like there was so much excitement to start the year and to really get into the work. You shared an example. I wanted to start teaching reading strategies, tomorrow, whatever. And I think I've seen school improvement efforts in other school districts. I really believe the key to school improvement is when teachers and principals are working together, studying together, and planning together. And that's what we saw happening. And that's when you really see the needle move on your achievement rates. And so it's very cool to watch the process.
Yeah, it's meant to be teacher led, so the more we can support that process, the better. The one other thing I just wanted to mention is we welcomed, it was going to be 24, but it became 25 new teachers during the week before staff development. They came together, they did an awesome job. We have a great group of new teachers. I think we're super lucky to have them, whether they're fresh out of college or are coming with several years of experience from other places. They had a lot of time that week to get to know a lot of the processes, but it's all overwhelming and a lot to take in. The mentors did a really great job spending time with them. They each are assigned a mentor for their first full year with us. And we of course support the mentors with like checklists each month of things to be specifically helping them with and reminders and stuff like that. So we're excited. The new teachers were here. That's always an energizing time as they get to know the district, and they always show a lot of appreciation for the support we give them. So any questions?
How many open positions, any right now? We all fill.
Molly? Do you have any open positions? No.
Oh,
I should have asked.
We have teachers, like our teaching positions are full, but I know sometimes there's always.
Good.
are we good with subs too?
We could always hire.
Okay, all right,
We just interviewed subs last week,
Okay.
so I'll be working on onboarding them.
okay.
But yeah, you'll have to approve a resignation of our teacher. That's great. So that one.
Okay.
So that became our 25th teacher at the last minute.
For the long-term subs, like we have for a full year, do they get the same support with a mentor and?
They do. It's always our hope if they have a successful year of being a long-term sub that they'll stay. So we always offer them the opportunity to come to our 5 days of new teacher orientation. We give them a mentor for the full year. We fully invest in them. And we do have a couple of people in that role this year, and they always really appreciate that because then that helps them be stronger when hopefully applying for a job to stay in our district. Yep. Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Crystal. Up next, Carrie Saunders, Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Update on seeking educational equity and diversity.
This will be real quick. I know Jen is anxious. Basically, this is our third year with a cohort of educators in what we call SEED, which is Seeking Educational Equity Through Diversity. And we have 24 participants. We spent a whole day together, August 22nd. There's 3 of us that lead that training, and it's a year-long process. We left that first day and we're like, yep, this is our best group ever. It's just the energy. It's similar to when we do the shared leadership team. I mean, these are people who are really dedicated and focused to, just learning and growing with their colleagues. So yes, 24 participants, and we'll meet once a month on Tuesday evenings after school for that. I wanted to share that good news. So any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer Willoughby, Director of Early Childhood and Family Services. Hello.
Once a year, I get to talk to you all about early childhood and all the cool things we do. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our program and kind of all the things that we're doing right now. I wanted to share with you our goals. I work with teachers for a shared leadership team as well, pretty closely, and we started creating our own. The teachers are all embedded in the schools and they all work with the school improvement plan, but we really started talking about our program as a whole in early childhood and what is our department program goals that we want to focus on too. So our teachers kind of focus on both sets of goals. They're a part of their schools and we want them to be connected to that, but we also have goals within early childhood that we want to focus on. So our student goals that we're really working on are working with all of our kids to form relationships with adults and following limits and expectations. What we've learned is that if students can make a strong connection with adults when they come into our schools as 3 and 4-year-olds, that their success in kindergarten and all the way through graduation is going to be that much more successful for them. They're going to be able to focus on the academic pieces and learn and create those relationships with peers if they have a trusting adult that they can form that connection with too. This year, we're adding the following limits and expectations. One thing we kind of learned with our program that we're going to focus a lot on this year is just kind of coming to some common agreements on what our limits and expectations should be for all of our students, because we're not all on the same page with that. You know, of course, everybody teaches differently and everybody runs their classrooms differently. But by leaning on best practice, Vision of Early Childhood Recommended Practices, and NACI, which is the National Early Childhood Organization, we're really going to lean on what we should be doing, what research says is best practice, and really hone in and focus on those limits and expectations for all of our kids. Again, because if they understand what school looks like and feels like and how to get along with peers and how to follow the teacher's rules for the classroom, they're going to be that much more successful academically. So we're going to really focus on common language and common expectations. So this is my only the brave become early childhood educators. It is, it's a tough job. I mean, teaching is a tough job, but working with 3- and 4-year-olds is challenging as well. Very rewarding. I have 15 teachers and about 14 support staff throughout our early childhood program. My right and left hands in all of my work that I do. Jill Bird is our early childhood and family education secretary this year. So she started in June when Erin resigned to stay at home with her grandbaby and travel. So she's enjoying and loving that. But Jill is learning the ropes, so I'm working with her. And then Amy Zimmer is our early childhood instructional coach. I work with early childhood special ed, and I'm going to work closely with Dina this year to kind of transition that into her hands. But we have 4 early childhood special ed itinerant service teachers. Itinerant basically just means they travel a lot. They go to all of the classrooms in the elementary schools. They also go to Head Start, Center 1 and Center 2, and they'll go to the cathedral and the area daycares as well. So they're kind of all over the place. We work closely with birth to 3. So we welcome kids in as they turn 3 years old from the county to receive special education services. And we have to find a spot for them within our program, or we invite the families to come in for speech services with their students. We also contract with birth to 3. We started this a couple of years ago where they utilize some of our early childhood special ed teachers to go into the homes for their families or their students that are receiving services through Douglas County. They don't have their own early childhood special ed teacher that they hire, so they've contracted with us to do that. And then part of the early childhood special ed that I get to oversee is the really fun part with the Carol Firmakis Fund. We've done this the past 2 years. I was going to bring you sensory bins to show you our latest, but I didn't get my hands on them. They are currently in all the classrooms, locked in cupboards, so I couldn't get them. But a couple of years ago, I brought the inclusive ability dolls that we purchased. And then this last year, we created sensory bins. So we have 6 bins in all the rooms that are basically hands-on, exploratory, fun things. One of them, that's a favorite of mine, has bugs in it with coffee beans, and the kids get to dig in all of that. So that's what we use the money for this year, and all of the classrooms have them. This is really foundational for me and for our work in early childhood. It's not a race. We're really working at students' pace and their level and focusing on what they need to learn at the time they need to learn it, but nurturing that as well, and focusing on each individual child. Family Resource Center. So I get to work with the Family Resource Center, and we do a lot. So this is kind of all the things we offer within the Family Resource Center. The physical location is at Northern Lights, but we offer those classes and opportunities to families all throughout the Superior School District. So newborns, I did bring something to show you. Last year, we started creating kind of a welcome packet. We got in touch with the hospitals in Duluth because, as you know, many of the babies for Superior are born across the bridge. So it's kind of hard to get our hands on making those connections with families. And so we started creating welcome packets for new babies born, whether they're born here or in Duluth. And we connected with Piedmont, the ECFE program, and she goes into the hospitals and she brings our welcome packets. So any newborn that is born that lives in Superior gets a onesie with a Family Resource Center card and information, and it's a double-sided card that's on there. So we started creating those with our little logo, and it was fun. I got a picture from a previous assistant of ours after she had her baby, and she said, "Look what I just got." So it was cool to see that. And Jill is packing up more. They keep calling us to say, we need more, we need more. So we're hoping that that's helping to spread the word that we're here, and we're here to offer supports and resources for families as their new babies are born. We have baby and me classes. So we offer those periodically. They're not as popular as our other classes. As you can imagine, not everybody wants to bring their newborns out in the middle of winter. So we offer them periodically throughout the year, but they're not a regular class. Regularly though, every 6 weeks, we offer early explorers and little learners classes. So for students 1.5 to age 4, there's 2 different groups that are offered. These are free. Parents or caregivers bring their students in for about an hour. We read stories, sing songs, have activities planned for them. And then we also have drop-in play groups for birth to age 5 once a week, and that continues all throughout the year. In the fall and in the spring, we like to do playground meet at the park, so that we have this new rotation. They'll start meeting at various parks throughout Superior. And then once the weather changes, then we bring it into Northern Lights and they have play groups there. We also collaborate a lot with community agencies. So we're offering a parent class this next rotation called, just had it and I lost it. But it's starting next week. Parenting class, it's going to be a 6-week class offered through I think it's Bayfield. The Family Resource Center in Bayfield County is coming to present that to our families. So we've done a lot of collaboration with that. We also worked with the FoodWise and the UW Extension agency to offer different classes and things like that too. Last year, we created a Google site, and it's linked to, it's on our district website, but it's all kinds of parenting tips about different topics for the families. So, you know, if your child is struggling with bedtime routines, you know, there's information on there about that, or different topics of things. So, FRC and lead educators. I have 2 that I work closely with that help with all of these things that the FRC offers. Julie DeMeyer, she plans and leads the morning playgroups, reaches out to the community to collaborate. And Shania just started. She does the 4K wrap in the morning at Cooper and then leads that. And then she also organizes the Google site and any book studies or conversation with parents in connection with them. So kind of already talked about this. Oh, there's our community collaboration. And then word of mouth is a big way that we collaborate. We also have a Facebook page that we're pretty active on for the Family Resource Center. Pre-K, this will be our 4th year. We're starting this year. We're at Bryant, which is new and exciting. So we're now at 3 of our elementary schools.
Did not add a classroom. We just moved one from.
Correct. So, yep, we didn't. Correct. Right. We still have 3 3K classrooms. We just moved one of them out of Cooper to Bryant. The exciting thing about pre-K is we've really been a model for other area districts. I have been contacted over the past couple of years for probably 10 different districts inquiring about pre-K and how to set this up and how this works. There's definitely a need for it in communities throughout Wisconsin. And so they're interested in knowing how we're doing things. So it's been fun to show it off, and many districts have come to tour and see what we're doing and look at our classrooms. We have licensed teachers, just like with 4K. It provides placement options for students as they turn 3 for special ed services. We also will take kids that are not receiving special ed services as they turn 3. So we have many families who say, my child turns 3 in January and I want to get him into school, and we have a spot for them when they turn 3 to start then. We have connections to our 4-year-old classrooms through family engagement, curriculum, and assessment. And then we've worked closely with Superior the past several years. We have work study students. I was just working with one today who was getting started and learning the ropes. And then we work with one of the classes to provide service learning opportunities for their students through UWS. These are some of our kiddos hard at work. Work is their play for sure, or play is their work. So this is them working and learning. And 4K, we are going into our 19th year here in the school district for 4K. We have 228, and I say I'm growing because I just got a phone call today. We are constantly getting phone calls still as the school year started from families looking for a 4K placement. Again, we have licensed teachers. We are at all of our elementary buildings within the district and at Head Start and Cathedral. And then we offer extended care where we have 3K. So at those 3 schools that 3K is at, we will keep the students for the afternoon and offer extended care till 4:30. Cathedral also offers extended care. Something, that rang true when UWS was speaking about childcare needs, it is definitely a need in our community. Families are looking for something all day. They can't make the half day work. It's really hard. We follow the Wisconsin model of early learning standards and recommended practices in NECE that I talked a little bit about already. Here is our website, and can you click on that by chance? I want to just show this off. Erin Gray worked really, really hard on this last year and updated it and changed it. And so this is kind of our one-stop shop for all of our early childhood programming. So if you were to click on any of the blue links, it would bring you to more information about those programs. The FRC classes are on there and the flyers for the classes that are being offered. And then any newsletters that I send out are linked in on the side. So she worked really hard with Casey to kind of get that up and running and make one page for all of our programs. So I think that's it.
Do you, with the YMCA, I know not running 4K this year, has that affected our numbers at all, or the numbers?
No, in fact, all but one was able to find placement within our programs. One of the families just said we'll stay at the YMCA for childcare, and so no, it didn't affect our numbers. However, I know it affected a lot of families. It was challenging for them to kind of figure out other options and what to make happen. I know the YMCA is still hoping to find a teacher, and so we haven't ended a partnership with them for future years. It's just this year at this time they weren't able to secure a teacher, and so we'll be in contact with them throughout the year, and fingers crossed they'll find somebody for next year. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Jen.
All right.
Mr. President, that's all.
Thank you.
Spurred on by that.
You're welcome. Next up, Personnel and Negotiations Committee. Taylor.
All right, I have 2 action items tonight. The first is administration recommends approval of the September 2023 new hires and separations report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. My second action item is administration recommends releasing Mary Hausner, social studies teacher at SMS, from her 23-24 school year contract per her request effective August 23rd, 2023, with the liquidated damages provisions enforced.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I'll just say that our recommendation for implementing the liquidated damages just aligns with our handbook language, so.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. There are no discussion items and no informational items, so that ends my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next up, Legislative Committee with Diana Smith.
I have no action items, no discussion items, just one informational item. Office of School Safety secures funds to maintain operations for 2023-24 school year. From OSS press release, Attorney General Josh Crowell today is announcing that the Wisconsin Department of Justice Office of School Safety has secured one-time funding to temporarily continue its current life-saving operations to keep Wisconsin kids safe. Since its inception in 2018, OSS has become a critical resource for students, teachers, school administrators, and educational communities across the state of Wisconsin by implementing practices proven to prevent violence in schools. And there is a full article attached that gives some examples.
I will just say that this has been a resource we have utilized and has been a valuable resource for our school district. They provided all of our threat assessment training. They help oversee and fund the Speak Up, Speak Out app, which is used almost daily. What's special about the Speak Up, Speak Out app that would be hard to do if it went away is it is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if a tip comes in at night or over the weekends, it goes to the police department or appropriate places. So I don't know what will happen after this year. I'm glad we still have those resources this year, but
With things like that app, is that super expensive to keep running?
I don't know. I mean, they haven't told us without funding, this is how much. I don't know if they'll have the program actually. So I don't know what'll happen if they don't receive funding after this year.
There was a push to eliminate it this year.
It was. So the fact we have it for another year is a good thing, but I will.
Other districts also seeing the same use from it and.
Well, I will say, yeah. So I will say when DOJ, I'm looking for Carrie, when DOJ was here last year doing a threat assessment training, they did give us high praise for the level of use. Use the app. And I attribute that to our principals and our teachers who do those reoccurring lessons every year to remind students, families, and teachers that it's there.
Yeah, they were really complimentary.
Yeah.
In this past summer when we had another training, so.
But I know all of the districts have tapped into the threat assessment training and it's very fun.
Is this something that's been in jeopardy like every year, kind of over and over? Is it first?
I was shocked when I saw it was potentially on the chopping block. It's so successful. I thought if you've implemented something that's working, so. Yeah.
And then I did pen a letter with the help of David on behalf of the board,
Yeah, I just think.
expressing our concern. And I think we need to watch this and make sure that we're addressing this issue with them.
Well, that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. And that concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Next regular meeting is Monday, September 11th at 5 p.m. Have a good evening.